you got at least one published paper that shows that it can actually undermine credibility, and it does next to nothing to change somebody's mind here with regards to what they think about a particular issue, what they think about a particular candidate, and what have you. So I don't really see the positives of them doing this, aside from the fact that they're accelerating into an activist organization, which nobody should trust. So, if you've followed this channel for a while, you know full well that I have been highly critical of the American Association of University Professors. Um, and for good reason. They very much claim to protect academic freedom, and so, yeah. Yeah. When I saw this come across my bench, though, oh my gosh. I was pretty stunned, and was a good response to that, to be honest, because I don't know if they're unaware of published research related to organizations like this making political endorsements or what, but wildly foolish to do this. Not surprised at all. Then again, this organization has not been. I don't think it's really been true to its mission in a very long time. It's associated with the American Federation of Teachers, actually, if I recall correctly, the AFT, which you see here. And so the news that came out on Thursday, as you can tell here, is that the AAUP announces first ever national political endorsement. Now, you're wondering, why the heck am I talking about this when I deal with primarily science on this channel and scientists? Well, the reason for that, of course, is universities are where we train the next generation of scientists and where an awful lot of scientific research in the United States is done. And it's very disappointing to see something like this. But then again, it's fair to say the AAUP does not represent all university professors, and it certainly does not. There's quite a number that I know myself. They certainly don't represent anything that I do. And they certainly don't represent a number of other folks that I know. They do have a decent membership. Yeah, I understand that, but I'm doubtful. And after I reviewed this, I want to go back to show some of the critiques, show some of the discussion that's come up in other places, and to bring up something we discussed at the time, a couple of years ago, that figures into this discussion. So let me read briefly their endorsement, dated July 30th, 2026. Today, the National AAUP announced our first ever national electoral endorsement in the association's 110-year history. The AAUP is proud to endorse Dr. Abdul Al-Sayed for the U.S. Senate in the Michigan Democratic primary. Dr. Al-Sayed is a fierce champion for debt-free and tuition-free higher education. Pause on that there. It's not free. Tuition... you can't make something free. You have to pay the people who are helping to educate said students. Where does that come from? And will be an invaluable ally for academic freedom and higher education as a public good in Washington. He has vowed to stand up to the Trump administration's ideological assault on the sector and defend the rights of students and faculty to speak out on political issues, question authority, and engage in peaceful protests without fear of retribution. Dr. El-Sayed is a former teacher and has been a member of several higher education labor unions, including the AAUP. Dr. El-Sayed has been endorsed by the AFT Michigan, Wayne Academic Union, United Auto Workers, and National Nurses United, blah, blah, blah. At the 2026 AAUP biannual meeting in Chicago in June, AAUP members voted unanimously on a package of resolutions to help better the position of the union, to help better position the union to build power to win the future of higher education and democracy. At the meeting, the AAUP's governing council committed to engaging more directly in political work, advancing an agenda for a debt-free public higher education, and confronting authoritarian threats to the sector, including censorship, program elimination, and efforts to control curriculum hiring and research. Now, to be clear, I don't want the federal government involved in running curriculum or hiring or much to that. benefit much to that, aspect either. But the AAUP has, my primary critique of them is they have been very consistent in utterly ignoring existing problems with higher education that are not the result of the right, but are the result of the left in there, and the dominance of one particular mode of thinking over another. And if you down with that, you can see survey results showing different backgrounds and what have you. Different surveys and what have you showing the ideological leanings. My particular favorite is Musa Al-Gharbi's work, who's shown pretty well that the ideological leanings of academia are nowhere near the same as the rest of the US public. Things like that don't address those problems and the results of perception and trust that come from academia's own failings in the last few years. But this decision was notably bad, given given that it's likely to undermine the credibility of the AAUP with the public. And why do I say that? This is actually why I say that. At the time, we covered this in 2023. Here, there was a particular paper and accompanying news article, which this is the news article from Nature. The paper, of course, is right here, and I will gladly put those in the description again for you. But just as a brief recap here, political endorsements can affect scientific credibility. In 2020, Nature endorsed Joe Biden in the U.S. presidential election. A survey finds that viewing the endorsement did not change people's views of candidates, but caused some to lose confidence in Nature and in U.S. scientists generally. Now, why do I bring this up? It is true, still, that there is a large amount of trust amongst the broader public at large in scientists. There's still a majority of Americans that trust universities and scientists generally at those universities, but that has decreased over time. That has very much decreased over time. And the particular study in question in here, again, I'm recapping it very briefly because I did talk about this at the time, and you can go back on the channel and find the video for that. Because what happened here was interesting, because you had this article, you had the paper itself come out, and then you had the Nature editorial board say we're just gonna do the endorsement anyway, and didn't really address any of the problems with doing the endorsement that the author of the paper highlighted. Again, very fascinating kerfuffle, for lack of a better word, to look at when you were talking about that. And they went on again to they endorsed Joe Biden in the 2020 election. They endorsed Kamala Harris in the 2024 election. They went and did it anyway. Scientific American did the same thing. And congratulations, you're following on with the published peer-reviewed research that made it into Nature, which is still among highly credible and most highly viewed academic research journals, that it ended up basically saying, no, you did nothing to affect actually anybody's decisions on who to vote for, but you did affect your own credibility. Let me remind on that. Yeah, actually, here it is, viewed endorsement control. Yeah, went down, went up among some here, but here I'm forgetting the exact thing here with it, but I encourage you to go have a look at it. But yeah, the two things in the paper that they looked at is whether or not it affected the credibility of Nature to begin with when they did their endorsement in 2020, and whether it affected the credibility of scientists generally. And it did. It to a lesser extent than the credibility affected by Nature, but it did affect the credibility of scientists generally too. And my guess is that the AAUP's endorsement would probably have the same effect. It probably will do next to nothing with respect to the election in Michigan. But for those there in Michigan who are seeing this, it probably will have a negative impact on the credibility of the AAUP. Generally, as well as since they just made this at the national level with the national organization. For those of you who don't know the way the AAUP works, they have national organization, have chapters all over the place. It's true for a lot of those kinds of organizations. But they made that decree at a national level, or excuse me, that endorsement at a national level. there, and that was a foolish decision given the published research. But I would be curious to know their reasoning for that, partially so, at least. But there's been other things that have responded fast and furious. Um, Here, so this is coming from Inside Higher Education. This year, the American Association of University Professors, the AAUP, is endorsing Michigan's. It's another sign that the AAUP has become a political organization at a time of hyperpoliticization in higher ed more broadly. Todd Wolfson said Michigan arms of the AAUP asked the national organization to consider the endorsement. The AAUP polled Michigan members, finding roughly 80% of those voting favored making an endorsement and about 97% favored Abdul al-Sayed. Wolfson said the AAUP's National Council signed off. Wolfson signaled there will likely be more endorsements ahead of the midterm elections. Again, dumb idea given the published research. Very dumb idea on the part of the AAUP. But then again, the AAUP has probably been a much more political organization for far longer. In here, so here's the thing I would say about that. 80% of its members voted in favor of making the endorsement, 97% in favor of Abdul al-Sayed specifically. Okay. How many of the professors? Well, okay. There's actually two questions I have when I read that survey thing that they did, apparently. How many of their members actually voted? What's the percentage that actually voted? And of the members in Michigan, of the professors in Michigan who could be members of the AAUP if they wanted to be, how many of them actually are? So that would be my question for the AAUP if they're doing this, is do they actually represent with this the whole collection of academia that could be members there in Michigan from the very many universities in Michigan? There's a lot of them, as there are in many and nearly every state now. There's a lot of universities, but actually, that's a good question I should ask myself. Is like how many universities are in each state? Fair question. Probably quite a number in each state now. But anyway, that's a whole other tangent. But that is my question here. Is that really representative of all the university professors in Michigan who could potentially be AAUP members? Because I'm pretty sure not all of them are necessarily. Let's see. Okay, we already read that. Vowed to stand up. MOVE continues the AAUP's evolution from its beginnings as a professional association that wrote seminal definitions of academic freedom and tenure to also become a left-leaning faculty union, now affiliated with the much larger, so it wasn't originally, but now is, with the much larger American Federation of Teachers. Some faculty have said this change in the 111-year-old group has eroded its historic importance as a politically neutral defender of academic freedom. I don't believe the AAUP would defend somebody who's right-leaning if they got into an academic freedom dispute. I don't believe they would do it. But Wolfson told Higher Ed Wednesday that engaging in politics proper is needed nowadays to defend academic freedom and other traditional faculty rights. Higher Ed is under threat, and those threats are coming from the government. Again, AAUP, what do you have to say to all the internal problems of the university? Pointed to the Trump administration's disruption of federal funding. This is a question I've always had. And yeah, sure, I don't actually approve of the disruptions in federal funding that have happened. I really don't. But here's the question that I have. What percentage of each discipline's research is funded by federal funding, i.e. total research dollars? What percentage of that is federal? If it's super large, then that's a problem just generally, that you're really, really dependent upon taxpayers in there. Let's see. As for the organization's historic mission of protecting academic freedom, tenure, and shared governance, Wolfson said elected leaders are going to be much more thoughtful and much more careful around those three pillars if they see the AAUP is willing to fight for them. Kind of doubt that, to be honest, but we'll see. Beyond the endorsements, the union has taken the Trump administration to court numerous times to challenge grant cuts and other policies. Okay. Wolfson said the AAUP chapters have long endorsed candidates. That's also a bad decision. And even if the AAUP hasn't nationally, in August 2024, he called then vice presidential nominee. Oh, God almighty. Yeah, stupid decisions. Shortly after AAUP has been, abandoned its nearly 2-decade-old categorical opposition to academic boycotts, sparking accusations that it also abandoned its commitment to academic freedom. The new AAUP policy did say that such boycotts, if done, should target only institutions of higher education that themselves violate academic freedom or the fundamental rights upon which academic freedom depends. In a debate last month featuring Wolfson and professor and commentator Jonathan Turley, Turley criticized the AAUP for taking political positions. Wolfson responded that first and foremost, AAUP is a member organization. We have 60,000 members, and we're a democratic member organization, so we reflect the thoughts and will of our overall membership. Again, what percentage actually voted on that, and what percentage of the population of university professors are members? For the first 50 years of its lifetime, it was a professional organization representing the profession. Wolfson said the debate hosted at the University of Wyoming by Heterodox Academy and the Conservative Steamboat Institute. In that moment, I think Jonathan is right. It would be better off being neutral. In the last 50 years, it has pivoted to mostly being mostly a union. Unions are political organizations, and so we have shifted the organization to reflect that. In an email Wednesday to Inside Higher Ed, Turley, the JBN, Maurice C. Shapiro Professor of Public Interest Law at George Washington University, said Wolfson was elected on the pledge to make the AAUP an advocacy organization, shredding any pretense of neutrality. With the conversion of the AAUP as an advocacy organization, there is no truly neutral agent representing the interests of all professors. Turley wrote, it has become the loudest part of an academic echo chamber. It only contributes to an environment of orthodoxy and intolerance. As trust in higher education continues to plunge, the AAUP is only accelerating that decline. Research shows that union endorsements seem to matter the more local an election is, said Jake Rosenfeld, a non-AAUP member in sociology and sociology professor at Washington University in St. Louis, whose research has focused on labor unions and the consequences of their decline. If they matter at the congressional on-up levels, they're going to matter on the margins, noting the country's widespread polarization. But he said other things unions can do politically, I think, can matter, like including recruiting people to drive turnout. The AAUP has started a political action committee, and Wolfson said its new political director will start soon. And if AAUP members don't like how he's running things, they could use their votes to vote him out. Somehow I don't buy it. But anyway, Jonathan Turley was mentioned there. He actually wrote about this himself on his whole thing here. And again, these are opinions of others here. And I'll get back to what I started with at the beginning. From Jonathan Turley's own thing here. Again, this will be linked in the description for you. And I encourage you guys to go read it and come up to your own mind. Anything you want to say in the comments is welcome. Just be respectful about it. That's all I got to say. I recently debated Todd Wolfson, president of the AAUP, over the loss of institutional neutrality in higher education. In the debate, I raised AAUP's own abandonment of neutrality principles, which Wolfson acknowledged. While viewers overwhelmingly supported a return to neutrality principles, Wolfson was undeterred. Indeed, This Week in Higher Education reported that the AAUP had moved forward with its first political endorsement in its history and would make more going forward. The first endorsement captured the radical agenda of the AAUP, Michigan's Democratic Senate candidate Abdullah Syed. Now, Abdullah Syed is considered actually much further to the left than the other Democrat that's in the primary. That is just for context here, just to make the point. As I discuss in my book, The Indispensable Right, there has been a systematic purging of conservative, libertarian, and contrarian voices in higher education in America. His opinion, of course. This viewpoint intolerance has been fueled by the AAUP, which was created to foster intellectual exchange and diversity. I previously criticized the selection of Wolfson, who promised to make the AAUP more of a fighting organization for liberal causes. A Rutgers University anthropologist and former union leader, Wolfson is a political activist who doubled down on the ideological intolerance that now defines higher education. As promised, the AAUP is quickly becoming a more radical and activist organization. It adopted an anti-Israel boycott policy and unleashed attacks on Trump supporters as fascists. It has targeted civic centers as conservative breeding grounds. The director of AAUP's Center for the Defense of Academic Freedom explains that they want to unleash naming and shaming and discrediting and undermining of legitimacy of such program. He is quoted as declaring, "I would really love to see kind of a robust research project on right-wing centers and individuals, like naming and shaming and discrediting and undermining legitimacy. I would love to strategically map who these efforts are and figure out what the weaknesses are and design a research agenda that just goes through them and tries to knock them out. And you can see here on down the list of what Jonathan Turley is claiming here. And Jonathan Turley is right to point out some of the biases there that exist with respect to universities have been documented at length elsewhere. Now, I'm going to put this back up here because, of course, AAUP can have whatever the hell opinions they want and all this other kind of stuff. My concern with all of this goes back to why I think it was a stupid decision to begin with, and it's probably a stupid decision for the local chapters to do the endorsements too, and it's because it undermines credibility. It is known at this, you got at least one published paper that shows that it can actually undermine credibility, and it does next to nothing to change somebody's mind here with regards to what they think about a particular issue, what they think about a particular candidate and what have you. So I don't really see the positives of them doing this, aside from the fact that they're accelerating into an activist organization, which nobody should trust. And I feel the same way about right-leaning activist organizations. Actually, I don't trust them any more than I trust a left-leaning one. And so just tell me that I shouldn't trust the AAUP, which kind of was already on my mind. And it was a foolish decision to engage in endorsement on their part. But they did it. They can now live with the consequences of that here, because I don't think they're going to be maintaining their credibility. And I don't believe that if it were the case that a more right-leaning person had an academic freedom problem with their university, that the AAUP would come to defend them. I don't believe that they would do that here, because they have gone down the trail in the opposite direction. But let me know what you all think. Hit the like button on the way out the door, comment on the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, all that lovely good jazz. Until next time, I'm Adrian. Stay curious.